Well, I'm pleased to be here, and I'm just going to say thanks to Tom for covering my entire presentation. I can now sit down. Did an excellent job. Certainly, when Federal Highway Administration and the state DOT are in concert with what is going on, we're being successful. So you're going to hear me repeat several things that Tom talked about because they are truly important. Not to just the state, Federal Highway Administration, local agencies, federal governments, tribal agencies. And Harvey talked about at the very beginning. I am not aware of another premier event like this that gets into bridge and tunnel safety nationally. The state bridge engineers and AASHTO talk about it through T18, and we'll hear from Matt a little bit about what's going on there. But there isn't a group that gets together at a national scale like you have this week. So I commend the group for seeing the broader picture here and expanding, dropping the Pacific Northwest because you are as far-reaching as the East Coast and beyond. So that's outstanding. So let's talk about what got us here today with bridge and tunnel inspection. Certainly a lot of different things happened to get us here. I'm going to rattle off two numbers and I'll come back to them. 614,387. Like Tom said, you should be jotting notes down feverishly. This may be on the test later. And 473. I'm going to come back to both of those numbers. But got us here with the bridge and tunnel inspection program Tom talked about. Silver Bridge. 1967, this bridge collapse happened over the Ohio River. This is what really was the springboard for us to develop a national bridge inspection standards program, national bridge inspection program. But that wasn't the only thing. We tend to learn from our mistakes. We tend to learn from not mistakes, but from our events, things that happen. 1983, Mianus River. A whole focus on what we call fracture critical today. 1987, bridge in New York, Schoharie Creek. We may hear Dave Henderson talk about that as well. And we talk about scour later today. But certainly things that do happen. We tend to be very reactionary in how we do things. And part of what I'm going to talk about today is how we can become proactive, get to a little bit more on being proactive. But that was the bridge side. On the tunnel side, we've had those as well. I mean, I know there was an event that probably didn't springboard us into tunnel inspection standards. But out here on the West Coast, you have the Dennis Edwards Tunnel. 1999, part of the ceiling in that tunnel collapse killed Dennis Edwards, who that tunnel was named after a few years later. But what really got us to where we are today with tunnel inspection and the reaction was certainly what happened in Boston in 2006 with that tunnel ceiling failure. And unfortunately, individuals died in that event as well. But these are things in our past that help us move forward. These are the events that led us here today to where we are in doing this. We've been doing bridge inspection for over 45 years. It was the early 70s when the first national program was put together. And it's still going on today. And we're still learning as we move forward today. Are we complete with all the challenges that affect bridge inspection? Absolutely not. And I'm going to focus on the challenges that are still lie ahead of us. Are we there with tunnel inspection? We think that Federal Highway Administration 2 years ago put a regulation in place, created a tunnel inspection program. But a lot of you were inspecting tunnels well before that. I can remember 19 years ago when I was early on with Federal Highway Administration, going out with our Western Federal Lands Office to go do tunnel inspection in Yosemite National Park. So we were doing it then, states were doing it. The difference is that we were doing it all differently. Not saying it was better or worse, it was different. So 2 years ago in developing the National Tunnel Inspection Standards, we're getting to consistency. So we have a level of confidence across the country that tunnels are being inspected the same way and as uniformly as possible. with qualified staff, with documented procedures, at a regular interval, to make sure things like this don't happen. Doug Blades from my office is going to talk more about the NTIS tomorrow, and I'm not going to go into the details of what got us here with the NTIS. But we tend to still be reactionary. I mean, I talked about the bridge issues we've had and the tunnel issues we've had in the past. You know, we just had a bridge failure last week. I-85 in Atlanta. And we'll probably go and investigate that and develop lessons learned from that we can share with the remaining states, all the states. But we continue to learn as we move forward. So what are some of the challenges? As I was preparing for today, and you know, my talk about the whole, and I love the conference title, the whole Bridging to Tunnel Inspection, I think is an outstanding title. And I was talking about the future is here for tunnel inspection. The future is here. We're ready. And I was thinking about challenges for tunnel inspection. And as I started jotting down challenges that I think we still face today and that we're going to face moving forward, these are all challenges that are going to face our bridge inspection program too. They're going to be there to face our everyday lives. So you'll probably resonate some of this as we talk about, but I'm going to get into some of the challenges. I'm going to hit maybe 4 today, and we'll talk about a couple others. Another one that Tom talked about right off the bat, talk about trucks. Trucks keep getting bigger, heavier, and become a challenge for us. And where does that affect us in the inspection program? It affects us in load rating. 45 years ago, we didn't have to worry about the trucks that are on our roadways today. We have vehicles that look like this driving up and down our highways, on our local roads. But I don't even think that's the worst of it. I think where us as a community need to be more engaged in is in the movement of freight. Whether we like it or not, we are going to be dealing with platooning of vehicles down the highway. We do analysis of bridges and potentially of tunnels moving forward that are going to need to be load rated. Not every tunnel is going to be needed to be load rated, don't worry. But we count for a truck to have 80,000 pounds, right? That's a generic, 80,000 pounds. States are going to be higher. But do we count for them to be 10 feet apart as they're going down the highway at 65 miles an hour? No. In our evaluation, we don't really consider it. We consider a normal spacing of 60, 70, 80 feet between those trucks. But with technology of vehicle-to-vehicle infrastructure coming, these vehicles are going to be able to communicate with each other, and they're going to be like cars running around on a NASCAR track, racing around an oval. Are we prepared that 80,000-pound vehicle now is 320,000 pounds on the bridge all at one time, with another 320,000 pounds right in the adjacent lane, and another 320,000 pounds in that adjacent lane? I was at a freight conference in Philadelphia back in the fall, and I raised this question. Have you considered what this is going to do to the infrastructure, and can the infrastructure handle it? I'm biased towards bridges and tunnels, yes, but I was also speaking on pavements. And the person leading the conference said, no, we never even considered it. We're not considering it. The rest of the industry takes it for granted that our bridges are safe because we keep them open. Safe bridges are open. Unsafe bridges are closed. I agree, exactly, Tom. It's what we say all the time. But we're going to start putting loads on these bridges. Are they going to remain open? Are we going to start load posting more of them and preventing this from happening? I know there's been a lot going on in the last year and a half ever since the FAST Act passed. Congress put 2 vehicles of particular in the FAST Act that are causing us challenges. One, I know a lot of states have been engaged in. My office asked you to develop a plan on how you're going to load rate emergency vehicles. And these aren't heavy vehicles, much heavier than you're dealing with, but they are compact, and they have some pretty heavy axle weights that on a small bridge in particular are going to be very challenging if we have 86,000-pound emergency vehicles driving around with the weights that are in law. FAST Act also passed a heavy-duty tow and recovery vehicle, also proving challenging, so much to the point that even my agency doesn't even know how we can help the states identify what to do. So we've been working through conversations within our agency on how can we even implement a weight limit that isn't clear enough in law on what you're supposed to do with it. So that's still challenging. What becomes more concerning with that, though, is nobody was asked about these vehicles. The state bridge engineers weren't asked, is this going to be a problem for you? Federal Highway Administration wasn't asked. What do you think, guys? Do you think your bridges in the country are going to have a problem? We weren't asked. We need to have the opportunity to make our concerns heard. I will let you know at Federal Highway Administration we are doing that. We are engaged with Congress when they allow us to voice our concerns about what's going on with these vehicles. But I also think it would be great if the states had that opportunity to do it as well. We don't have the ability to lobby Congress. That's a role that Federal Highway Administration cannot play. But if you have an opportunity to speak with your legislature, your governor, your senators, your congressmen, and you have that voice to be heard, maybe they would hear it as well. Because I will tell you, industry is talking to Congress. Industry is what got those two vehicles into the FAST Act. You can look at the emergency vehicles and the weight limits that are in the FAST Act, and they are right out of a catalog from an industry. Total weight, axle weight, it's as if they cut and paste it right into law. I just read last week, Anheuser-Busch is also trying to get heavier trucks on the highways. This is how they can move products more efficiently. Why take an 80,000-pound truck when I can take a 90,000-pound truck, a 100,000-pound truck? That's potentially 5 less trips that have to be made. They are making their voices heard. It's time for you to make your voices heard as well, I believe, because that's where one of our biggest challenges is going to be, is in load rating. Now, granted, a lot of our tunnels are going to be on grade as far as roadways. But let me ask you about Alaska Way. We have a plenum underneath that slab that's going to be, the vehicles are going to be on. It's going to have to be load rated. And if we start allowing trucks like this to go through, we're going to have a challenge even with tunnels. So load rating is one of the challenges I want to put before us. And this isn't before you. This is before us, because I think we have to work collaboratively to address these issues. Technology. Technology is going to be a huge challenge for us. And going through the agenda for this week, I think you've got a lot of great presentations coming. It's exciting. Yeah, technologies or presentations on drones, presentations on non-destructive evaluation, structural health monitoring. There's even one in there on FRP, an inspection of FRP. These are new materials, and I won't leave it at just FRP, but I'll challenge us. Technology is going to give us new materials that, as inspectors, we need to know how to evaluate them. We need to know whether they are in good shape or not in good shape. Is that FRP deck still good, sound, safe to carry traffic? What about the next wave of technology? But there are things that we're out there. We are helping ourselves with. Drones, trying to use that technology to our advantage. Structural health monitoring, non-destructive evaluation, trying to see things that we can't see with the eye. AASHTO and Federal Highway Administration paired up to make Sharp 2, R19A and G priorities. These are non-destructive evaluation technologies coming out of the Sharp 2 program. one for bridges, one for tunnel linings, because we can only see what we can see. But technology is going to help us see things we can't see with the naked eye. But with that becomes a challenge. How do we interpret all of that data? How do we know what it's telling us? This is another opportunity not only for Federal Highway Administration and states, but for our industry folks that are working in this area. We need to be able to turn the data into information that can be used to make decisions. That's what's going to help the states and the owners, federal agencies, local governments that need to make a decision. We can't give them gigabytes of data and have them expect to know what to do with it. So it's an opportunity for industry to help us move forward with that. So when I think of technology, I think of the Ferrari, a fast car. And I intentionally picked green because I didn't want a red car up there. It took a while to find a green Ferrari, but I found one. It only took one day to test drive, but I just wanted a picture. No, I joke. I stole it off the internet. This is what technology is. Technology is the Ferrari driving at us. Technology is going to come at us whether we want it to or not. And as government agencies, we tend to be the turtle. We are not quick to react to allow technology to help us. And I'll take responsibility with that as well. I'm looking at myself when I say that. A lot of the technology I talked about when it comes with drones, structural health monitoring, NDE, is this all stuff we can easily change the National Bridge Inspection Standards to make it acceptable? It's not. We don't operate like the Ferrari all the time. Unfortunately, we do have bureaucracy that gets in our way. And we tend to be the turtle that's trying to get run over by the Ferrari. And sometimes the best thing we can do is jump on board the Ferrari and go for the ride. These are conversations that we have to try and figure out how to make this work. I think drones are great, and we're going to be an excellent resource for us. Are they going to replace a hands-on required inspection of a fracture critical member tomorrow? No. Unfortunately, we have a regulation that requires an inspector with their eyes to be in an arm's length of that member to look at it. It takes a rulemaking process to overcome that, and that is not easy. It's not even getting easier. It's becoming harder. But it's something we need to do and explore with the opportunities we have. What we can do and what my agency can do with policy, we will do what we can to help some of the technologies be used and effectively. Can we do it today? Drones, yes. I think drones can supplement your bridge inspection program, your tunnel inspection program today. NDE, we talk about it all the time in in-depth inspections, but if you wanted to use it to supplement your routine inspections, go right ahead. We'd have nothing to stop you from doing that, and I think it would be a great asset of doing it. We have NDE that we can slap on a drone, and then we got the whole big gambit going, right? And a lot of people think of drones, we're thinking of things flying through the air. I'm going to put submersibles in there as well. There are far too many dangerous times we put divers in the water that don't need to be in the water, especially if everything is in good shape. Once again, regulation says you have to put a diver in the water, right? I'm trying to figure a way to overcome some of that. So I think when we talk about drones and the technology, it's there. It's going to be here. It's going to there. We need to leverage it and use it. And we have to stop being the turtle that's going to get run over by the Ferrari. Because that's unfortunately where things are. Trying to make it as best we can. Next, you lost, confused, unsure where we're headed? Sometimes as an industry, we're our own worst enemy. We create lingo that lives forever. Lingo that we created as an industry that we knew exactly what meant when we said it. Lingo that as we become open to the public and the media, it gets misconstrued. So at Federal Highway Administration, we are trying to move the ball in a different direction with some of the language we're using. Talked about the FAST Act and how it created challenges for us with the load rating side. It also created opportunities. When Congress, or I shouldn't say the FAST Act, but my apologies. When MAP 21 was enacted in 2012, the Highway Bridge Program was not reauthorized. Sounds like a problem, but we're fixing bridges better at a faster pace than we were under the Highway Bridge Program. But there were language in that because of the Highway Bridge Program that still is out there in our legacy. Let's talk about functionally obsolete. Federal Highway Administration is going to stop using this term. I encourage the states to stop using it when they can. It was needed to apportion funds and identify projects of need. Without the Highway Bridge Program, a bridge doesn't need to be functionally obsolete anymore for you to spend money on it. The language is out there and that we are not going to move quickly. But what can you say? Well, let's talk about what the problem is. This bridge has narrow lanes. This bridge has narrow shoulders. The underclearance is inadequate for what the highway is carrying. The waterway opening is inadequate for the flow rates underneath the bridge. These are all things we could have always been saying that says a bridge is functionally obsolete. Let's start talking about what is making the bridge functionally obsolete instead of hanging ourselves on the term. Because the term does not tell us what the problem is. It just creates panic in the public. Sufficiency rating. Let's call this the first bridge management system in the world, right? We had a sufficiency rating that gave us a number between 0 and 100. And Federal Highway Administration said early on in the bridge program, if you had a bridge with a sufficiency rating under 50, you could replace that bridge. If you had a bridge with a sufficiency rating under 80, you could rehabilitate that bridge. Over 80, sorry, you can't spend any of your money on that. This term has become so synonymous with safety, it is ridiculous. After the I-35 bridge, I-85 bridge failure in Atlanta last week, the media requests that came in to our agency asking for the sufficiency rating of the bridge that fell down was crazy. The media doesn't understand what the sufficiency rating even means. They think if a sufficiency rating of 0, the bridge is going to collapse. They think if the sufficiency rating is 100, it's in perfect shape, no problem. That is not what the sufficiency rating was used for. Another term that without the Highway Bridge Program, Federal Highway Administration doesn't need to talk about anymore. These are things that we stopped in 2015 talking about and published in the data, 2016. And 2015 is a key year. 3 years after MAP 21 was enacted. It was the last time a state could obligate their funds in the Highway Bridge Program before they lapsed. They had 1 plus 3, that's the federal program, right? So it was enacted in 2012, we had 12, 13, 14, 15. Anything left after that was going to lapse. And there was a lot of money that lapsed in the Highway Bridge Program. That's another good thing that I'll make fun of myself or of government. We dangle $1 over your head and say, here, spend 95 cents. We can't spend all the money we give you. We don't have the obligation limitation for allow you to spend it. So mainly because of that reason, we had a lot of money lapse. Not because states weren't using it. They had other priorities as well. But these are 2 terms that we are stopping to use. We just published the 2016 NBI data. Published it on our website at the end of January, beginning of February. We've changed the frequently requested tables. There is not a table anymore that's published with 2016 data that tells you how many functionally obsolete bridges there are in the country. Not that we can't tell you, we can. It doesn't mean anything. The media went crazy because they didn't have the data. How many functionally obsolete bridges there are? We still get requests from Congress. Just 2 days ago. Can you tell me how many functionally obsolete bridges there are? Sorry, we can't. Don't have that data anymore. Which brings to the third one. Structurally deficient. My gosh, the bridge is falling down. It's structurally deficient. We can't get rid of this one that easy. Congress put this right into law. The term lives there and will live there until Congress takes it out of law. But we can move away from it. When you talk about structurally deficient, and I've heard people talking about it today, what are you talking about? You're talking about the condition of the bridge, primarily. There's two elements that I understand go in there as well. Less than 0.1% of the deck area on the national highway system is structurally deficient because something other than condition. It's essentially equal. A bridge that's in poor or worse condition is structurally deficient. We can just start talking about the condition of the bridge today. You have the data. We have the data. These bridges are poor or worse. I'm not going to talk about performance management. Some of those things are coming. We've extended the effective date of that rulemaking till May. We can come back next year and talk about performance management if you'd like. But they're becoming synonymous. A bridge that's poor, was structurally deficient, is poor. And I think we're going to be able to get there eventually. Then I got one more. I talked about it. Another one would be tough to get rid of. Fracture critical. Another thing that we think the sky is falling. That bridge is fracture critical. Let's not build it. We've got to replace it. It's fracture critical. I've even seen proposals from Congress that has a plan to a bridge program to replace fracture critical bridges. Tom, is that your priority to go out and replace all the fracture critical bridges in your inventory, especially the ones in good condition?
How many billions are you going to give us?
We're just going to tell you to do it without giving you any money. That's the way we do it, right? Sorry. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. But this is some of the language we grasp onto. These are things that permeate our industry. I talked about being the turtle. It's right in the NBIS regulations. It's not going to be easy to get out of. But these are an opportunity for us to figure out what to do. What is a fracture critical member? It's a non-redundant steel tension member. That's a mouthful. Yeah, probably. What about all those non-redundant concrete members? We do anything special for those? A single concrete column could fail and a bridge would fall down. It's not required to do anything special with those. Why not? Because we don't call them fracture critical? And we don't call them fracture critical because they're not made of steel. And they're in compression. The whole thing is wrong. We had a bridge years ago in Philadelphia. I-95 was closed because a single column failed. Single concrete column failed. Nothing special was done for it. But because we had Mianus River, because we had Silver Bridge, we drew special attention to this. Our industry drew special attention to this. We're our own worst enemy. What's next? I don't know. We're going to come up with something, right? One question I got after the National Tunnel Inspection Standards were created is, well, what are we going to do about all those fracture critical tunnel members? I said, sir, we have no fracture critical tunnel inspection members because that's a bridge member. We didn't put fracture critical into the tunnel inspection standards because we don't want it in the tunnel inspection standards. But we grab onto the language and hold on to it. So as we move forward in tunnel inspection, let's not create new language that's going to cause us heartburn. Let's think about when Tom has to go in front of the media and answer the questions and the crazy people over here that you were talking about. I didn't see them. These are terms we need to figure out how we want to use them and describe them in plain language so everyone understands them, not just our industry. Which gets me into measures. I told you I wasn't going to talk about performance management, and I'm not, because I can't. But we all do measures, right? We measure things. We develop dashboards because we're in a transportation-based industry and we got to have something out of a car in there. So we develop a dashboard and we put things up there and we measure things. We are not short of data. This happens to be a dashboard I put together. I'm as lucky to blame as well, and this is looking at trends on the national highway system and projected trends. But when we talk about tunnels, this has been easy. We've been doing it for 45 years for bridges. How are we going to talk about it when we talk about tunnels? We got a portal. Yeah, it looks good. Looks like some rust staining over there, maybe a crack. We've got the liners running down the middle of it. Up, another wall. We've got some leakage from behind a wall. Probably doesn't happen in any tunnel but this one. I think this is the only tunnel I think I found that actually leaks. We've got ventilation systems. Harvey talked about it earlier. We've got electrical systems, mechanical systems, pumping systems. How are we describing the condition of these tunnels? What's going on your dashboard? So you can tell the public, like you do today with bridges. This isn't easy. Moving towards element level inspection, which we've been doing on bridges and we're starting on tunnels, becomes a challenge to wrap up in a nice bow a singular answer for what the condition of our bridges and tunnels are. So this becomes a challenge for us as an industry as well. How are we going to communicate to the public, to your stakeholders, what the condition of our tunnels are? Moving forward as we use element level inspection more, how are we going to wrap up a bridge that has 30 different elements in one of four multiple condition states and different quantities in condition states, to wrap it up in a nice bow and say that bridge is poor, that needs to be replaced. That tunnel needs to be replaced. It becomes a challenge for us, and I think this is where we can work together to try and figure out how we can figure that out, because it's not going to be an easy thing to do. Last, let me kind of end with some tunnel factoids, and I'm going to come back to wrap things up. December 2015, we collected data from all the states and federal agencies. So far, no tribal governments have come forward with a tunnel, but it applies to them as well. Here's all the tunnels we have in the country, provided the lat-long coordinates were correct. Only had to move a couple of them this time. Not too bad. California, the state with the most tunnels, congratulations. 70 of them out of 473. But to take the title from California, the National Park Service owns the most tunnels, more than Caltrans. A federal government agency owns the most tunnel, is going to be the most impacted agency in the country. 63 tunnels owned by the National Park Service in multiple states, several in California. Tom talking about the age of bridges, getting older. Interesting to see that, we developed a program a year and a half ago. We thought all these tunnels were brand new. Who knew they were so old? Average age of the tunnels of the 473 we collected is 59 years old. The average year built, 1958. Oldest tunnel in West Virginia, built in 1882. It's probably in good condition. Just guessing. Certainly, when you have data, as I talked about, you've got to use it. You've got to use it to your advantage. So, longest tunnel, congratulations, Alaska. Anton Anderson Tunnel, 13,300 feet long. Also carries a railroad and vehicles at the same time. Well, maybe not at the same time. That would be a problem. Shortest tunnel belongs in Colorado, 11 feet long. Both tunnels are going to be are going to have to follow the National Tunnel Inspection Standards. They're going to have a program manager in charge. You're going to have team leaders with the right qualifications. Going to have to develop the procedures to inspect both. But we're ensuring some consistency with the National Tunnel Inspection Standards. So let's talk about moving forward. We've got bridges. We've been dealing with them for over 45 years as an inspection program. We're just starting out in tunnels. I predict this is what the Alaska Way Tunnel is going to look like before you ever put a car in it, nice and clean. But we're not short of challenges. But I know we can rise up to the challenge. The big thing is we need to work together with them. One of the big things I think we need to try and get in the conversation is on freight. We don't think about bridge engineers being involved or structural engineers. I don't want to exclude the tunnel engineers here in the freight conversation. That's a planning thing. Don't worry about freight. Freight's going to cause us a problem because they want to move their product as efficiently as possible. We're going to have that platooning effect going up and down the highway. We're going to be asked to allow heavier and heavier vehicles going on our highways, through our tunnels, over our bridges. It's going to be coming. We need to be prepared. We need to be part of the conversation now. Technology is also there. Let me raise a hands. How many states have explored the use of drones? How many are using them mainstream? How many consultants are encouraging their customers to use drones? Don't want to leave the industry out of this, folks. They're there driving with us. We need to be in the Ferrari with them. Otherwise, we're the turtle that gets run over on the highway. We need to embrace the technology that's coming. And we have to look at the other things we talked about today. These are challenges that are going to be there. They're going to affect our entire industry. When problems come, people tend to go to the bridge engineers and the structural engineers because we can solve them. Let's help solve the problem before the next one happens, because that's what we can do. We can solve the problem and work collaboratively together to try and make this work. Especially on things where we have a regulation in place that's causing us heartburn from using something. When it comes to structural health monitoring, we need to be giving information and not just data. It's the information that's going to drive decisions, not reams and reams of data. And we are there and looking at it. NDE methods. Federal Highway Administration and through the Long-Term Bridge Program has the rabbit out there. 4 different NDE technologies on a single platform. We're not the only ones. It's just the beginning. We're going to have infrared on drones flying around telling us what the problem is. But we just can't have data. We need to have the information to make the decisions. And lastly, I want to go back to the first number. 614,387. Number of bridges we have in the country. 473 tunnels. 0.08% is the number of tunnels we have. We need to leverage the 614,000 bridges and the experience we have to make the 473 go easier. They aren't much different structurally. We do need to embrace the electrical, mechanical, hydrologic part of it. And that's where another topic we're going to hear about this week is on how movable bridges have very similar type technology. We're doing it already. We've been inspecting movable bridges with this type of technology. It's very similar. We just need to embrace it and use it. The 473, well, pretty soon 474, once you get the Alaska Way open up, is going to go a lot easier. I think you've got an outstanding agenda before you the next day and a half. Soak it up. Learn from the people around you. When Debbie first looked at your neighbors, I thought it was going to be to have an icebreaker and strike up a conversation at break, but it's good enough to know where the exits are too, Debbie. But leverage things. And this can't just be anymore a federal-state type of relationship. We also need to look at how industry can help us. Because industry is driving a lot of things on the technology, and we need to be able to get on board to understand how that's going to work and leverage it for our benefit. I appreciate the time. Thank you very much for letting me be here.